One or any of its subsidiary companies. Attorney Nathaniel Lee, a lawyer with credibility, success, and experience. Representing people in hundreds of jury trials, Nathaniel Lee is who you want by your side in the courtroom. You've seen the rest, now hire the best. Contact Lee, Cosell, and Feigley today. And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning. This is Nathaniel Lee. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for listening to our show. I especially like to thank the folks in South Florida. Thank you for joining us each week, and also in Chicago. And today we have our superstar panel. We have Attorney Vanita Banks, Masters in Tax, cyber security expert, research analyst. We have Marlon Primes. He spent his career working for the Justice Department, now the Injustice Department, and of course, the famous Milton Grimes, who famously represented Rodney King. But today, there's so many legal issues going on, and it's difficult to determine a starting point. But start we may, I'm trying to think. The one thing that bothered me this week, I guess I need to start off with this, was the P. Diddy appeal. I'm not a fan of P. Diddy or anything like that, but I did watch his jury trial, and they acquitted him of all the serious felonies, and he essentially got convicted of promoting prostitution across state line, a consensual act, and for which he paid a lot of money. He did a horrible thing to Cassie Ventura. He beat her up, he kicked her in 2016, it resurfaced. And for that beatdown, she received a check for $20 million. And so when the judge sentenced him, he got a 4-year sentence. And the reason I was concerned about this, I looked at R. Kelly, who's got 30 years, and I got this guy for promoting prostitution, 4 years. And at the same time, one of Marlon's, the Justice Department, you got these gigantic Epstein files that apparently document what I've seen, the exploitation of young children. And so I don't understand the Justice Department anymore, Marlon, as to how one set of facts, it's not as bad as the other. I just don't get it, because I keep looking at this Epstein situation, looking at what happened to these Black superstars, and it's troublesome to me, quite frankly.
Yes, well, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Nathaniel, Milton, Vanita, and all your listeners, Nathaniel. Yes, there's some challenges, to say the least, of the Department of Justice. Now, the issue in terms of P. Diddy, just briefly, I mean, what he did to Cassie in terms of just the beating is just reprehensible, and, full stop. That's just inappropriate. But at the same time, we have to respect the jury verdict and the acquittals. And so what the basis of the appeal is, that, and Milton is more of the expert in criminal law than I, but if you have let's say you have 10 charges and you're acquitted on 8 and you're found guilty on 2, the principle that they're relying upon is that your sentence can't relate to the charges that you were acquitted of. And so what P. Diddy's lawyers are saying, that when you're talking about racketeering and using that as a basis of a sentence, that's inappropriate. You can only convict, not only convict, but a sentence based upon what the jury convicted him on. So it seems as though the federal appellate panel was torn on that issue. And so it looks as though, they may, basically indicate to prosecutors that they may be overstepped. Now, in terms of the Epstein case, my view on that has been, clear, as your listeners may very well know. I mean, there's nothing that's more precious to a society than our children, our young people. And when people that are our age or, should know better, they have to do better, and we have to hold them accountable. So wherever, they lie, whatever party they're in, we need to get to the bottom of it. Congress has basically moved to release the files. We see a lot of backsliding in terms of making, files available. And I think, we really need to push our elected representatives to make sure that the light comes out, and we really see what happened. And there are a number of people in very, very high places, Bill Gates, a number of people that have been implicated, and they've done wrong. They need to be held accountable.
I know
Marlon,
Attorney Banks, go ahead, Milton.
Marlon, but throughout my career, and I'm sure you've seen it too, the the guidelines, so to speak, or that we were led to believe would level the playing field on sentencing, it really doesn't work because people are sentenced according to a lot of circumstances that I see didn't apply to their guilt or what they were found guilty of. Like OJ in Las Vegas, when he was sentenced for the number of years he was sentenced to for trying to recover his own property, I think most of us saw or believe that that sentence did not meet the act that he did. That sentence had something else attached to it. I saw in my recent vacation, met a lot of people who got 30 years and had harsh sentences for financial crimes that other people there got less than double digits, got 7 years or 5 years for. So it's not a fair, uh, unbiased sentence across the board here. You also, when you sentence, and you would know this better than I do, even if 8 of the charges were dismissed or you were found not guilty on, there's something called the person's conduct or like a remorse, or you're not forgive you're not humble enough. All kinds of factors go into a sentence that we don't see. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of subjectivity in the process, and you're right. With the federal sentencing guidelines, there was an attempt to nationalize things, but you're right. There's still subjectivity within the
Right.
federal sentencing guidelines.
The P. Diddy, good morning, everyone. P. Diddy's lawyers are arguing that the sentence of 50 months over 4 years in prison is out of line with the sentencing guidelines for a violation of the Mann Act. You'll recall that he was not convicted on racketeering charges. And if we're comparing to the R. Kelly case, racketeering was one of the several charges that R. Kelly was faced with. The typical sentencing guidelines for violation of the Mann Act would be 15 months. And P. Diddy has already served 19 months, I believe. His lawyers are arguing that the judge in his sentencing considerations looked at evidence that was connected to the more serious charges of racketeering and sex trafficking, of which Diddy was acquitted.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, Vanita. I thought you-
Yes, he was acquitted on the more serious charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. And as you know, the Mann Act is the illegal criminal act of transporting people across state lines for the purposes of prostitution. So those were the arguments that P. Diddy's attorneys raised in their appeal of the conviction late last week. I believe that was Thursday. Now, did the judge take the arguments under consideration? I haven't seen a ruling on the appeal yet. Counselors have.
Yeah, it's usually going to take a while. I mean, the way it works is you have a three-judge panel and then they issue a decision and then there's an opportunity to ask for reconsideration or have the full what's known as an en banc panel of the whole court decide the issue. So it will be a while until we get a determination on this particular issue, in
It,
my view.
my saying, excuse me, Marvin, I'm sorry, I
No,
tend
go
to
ahead.
stop people. My saying that was not to support one thing or another, but just my observation and experience with the guidelines was put up as a hope of dealing with a more balanced sentencing from powder to crack, cocaine, etc., and in the criminal justice system. But my observation and experience says it's not true. It's really not uniform sentencing. It's really not equal sentencing for this person and that person. And I saw a multitude of African American men who seemed to have been sentenced with 20 and 30 years, like it was handing out candy in the store, on sentences that other people, not non-African Americans or non-minorities, were getting hand smacking for, and being placed in facilities that, how in the hell did they get into a camp? How did they get into a level one when they had offenses that would warrant 10 and 12 years, or got 10 and 12 years, but immediately placed into a, a different setting than other people with light sentences? It's just not a fair and indiscriminate sentencing being done in the criminal justice system. It's very unfair from my experience and observation.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I had the opportunity to work at a lot of our federal prisons when I was a federal prosecutor, and there's just so much evidence of the overcriminalization of African Americans. I mean, you see throngs and throngs of just young Black men
Right.
that are walking through our federal prisons, and a lot of it was because of what you saw during your career, just the war on drugs and the disparity between crack cocaine and powdered cocaine. So. I think you're absolutely right. There was a hope that it would equalize things, but you're right. There's some progress that we still need to make.
Okay, there's so many topics. I got about 10 different topics today, and I don't want to cut anybody off, but there are so many that we need to cover. I think that one of the key issues facing us now is that we got the cost of oil and petroleum, it's like double, and it's because of the Iran war. And I don't know, I know Vanita usually give us good update. Vanita, what's going on with this war now? And did we ever get congressional approval? Do you know?
Well, counselors and listening audience, a case was never made to the people regarding the rationale for this unjust war of choice. There was never any evidence. And we're hearing, you know, during this 24/7 news cycle that intelligence was available to the administration, which demonstrated that there was no threat, that Iran did not have the nuclear capacity, that it in fact had been decimated and wiped out. We know that President Obama, had a deal that was working. Um, and at this point, what I'm seeing in my view is that through this war, Iran now has gained a lot of leverage. They are now holding the world economy hostage through the Strait of Hormuz. They control that now. Sanctions had been recently lifted, And Iran is talking about administering tolls on ships going through the of Hormuz and using krypton, anything but U.S. currency, to as part of their demands in reopening the Strait of Hormuz. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Meanwhile, as a result of this war, the U.S. The University of Michigan, or Michigan University, has released a survey which shows that consumer sentiment is 47.6%, and it's the lowest that it's been since the Great Recession, the pandemic, and the 2008 2009 recession. And I earlier stated the Great Recession. I'm going back to the Great Depression. And that is due to this war. It's due to tariffs. It's due to the increase in food prices, gas prices, airline prices. Um, and so this war has not resulted in a regime change. It never could have resulted in a regime change. The ideology of Iran leaders is still the same. At this point, one Ayatollah has been replaced with a younger Ayatollah.
Mm.
What I've read about this war, it fascinates me because the way that Netanyahu went into Trump on this time, I understand, was more aggressive and giving false promises. He told him that this war would only take a couple of weeks and they would wipe out Iran, and that the internal conflict and a potential fight with another country, I don't know if it was Pakistan or which one, would they would be fighting at two fronts, and they didn't have the manpower or the skill or the ability to fight just one front, and that it would be a cakewalk for the U.S. to join Israel in their position against Iran and support them and be a strong ally. And it would be done in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks at the most, and that it would be easy to do. That his army general, Kane, I believe, advised him that Netanyahu was full of bull and that he was overstating his position and that he was lying to the U.S. just to get support, that he had nothing to back up his claims about how easy it was going to be. Vance wasn't on board until the second day, and he was totally against this war. That most of the president's advisors were against this war, but Netanyahu, for some reason, had his ear more than anyone and convinced him to get into this war that was not supported by his advisory group. So I don't know how we can look at this other than we had a leader who did not follow the advice of the people around him.
Yeah, I think there's just been a number of missteps across the board as it relates to the war. One of the things that I thought was really important is that if you look at President Obama's national security team, they have been vocal indicating that Netanyahu tried to do the same thing, asking them to participate in bombing of Iran, and other administrations have said the same thing. So that leads us to believe that the information that being relayed by Netanyahu is not accurate. The other thing that's really important is that, one of the most consequential things that a president can do is lead a country to war. And before you do that, you want to at least, as Vanita said, have a clear objective in terms of what you're trying to do. You should be consulting with allies and also obviously consulting with Congress, and none of that was done. And so the problem now is that Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, made it believe that this was going to be a walk in the park, that they were going to get support from internal, people in Iran. That didn't happen. They indicated the Strait of Hormuz would not be closed, and Trump's advisors, also people that are now being, terminated, that are in the military, been there for years, said that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So it's just a problem all around. And then finally, our allies in Europe and other parts of the world are saying, hey, we're not going to come to your aid in terms of opening the Strait of Hormuz because, hey, you never consulted us. And finally, most importantly, after World War II, the United States was instrumental in setting up an international law structure through the United Nations. And how many wars in our lifetime, Milton's lifetime, have we gone to war indicating that, hey, one country is not following international law? How do we have credibility when we initially attacked Iran when they were at the negotiating table? We made no attempt to go to the United Nations apparatus that we set up that's on our home soil. So there's so many problems that I think are not only going to impact us now, but are going to impact the credibility of our country for decades to come.
One of the things that was very important that I saw in one of the show, they talked about Netanyahu criminal cases, right? So he has 3 separate criminal cases that have been pending, and one dealt with bribery, the other one dealt with they all dealt with primary financial crimes, them taking payoff, and these crimes been pending against him for a long time. The trial began in 2020. Now, this is very important. Because of the war with Iran and the state of emergency in Israel, the trial has been paused. So as they get closer to getting a verdict, we get a war that stops the trial.
No.
So some people were troubled by that. They were saying that he put pressure on Trump and caused these idiots that run in the Department of Defense. I apologize for saying idiots. Maybe giving idiots too much credit. But so the net result is a lot of people are saying that the trial that started in 2020, because of this war, as long as this war is an emergency, apparently it stopped the trial. So the net result is that some people see that this so-called weapons of mass destruction in Iran is foolish in the sense that they think that Netanyahu has a personal agenda. So I don't know, but maybe it's just a strange coincidence.
Yeah. I thought
Well, you also see us enter war as the focus was on the Epstein situation as well. And so there are a lot of commentaries that are saying, this is wag the dog. We also saw during Easter last week that the president declared through social media that a whole civilization will die tonight, threatening to target civilians. From my perspective, that assertion itself of a intent to commit a war crime should subject this president to the invocation of the 25th Amendment. And several members of Congress are contemplating that. Of course, it probably won't happen because that has to be led by the vice president and the majority of U.S. government agencies. But to articulate that you plan to or to threaten to wipe out a country is just horrible. It's horrific and
well, to
tantamount to a threat to commit war crimes, which get into an issue of whether the military could refuse such an illegal order.
Well, Milton? The 25th Amendment has a little chance of coming into into play here because the vice president is over there now, negotiating with Tehran on
Absolutely.
directions of the president. So he's following the orders.
Absolutely.
I got to answer this, folks.
Yeah, the other thing that's really problematic that didn't get the attention it deserved is that the message of our president on Easter Sunday, the holiest day across religions in the world, and him using the F word and mocking the Muslim religion. President Obama, as many of your listeners will recall, President Obama was harshly criticized for just having a tan suit on. And yet, you have someone using the F word, mocking a world religion, Islam, and you don't hear a word out of many of the president's supporters. So it's really unfortunate. We should have an even standard in terms of what our expectations are for the leader of our country. And certainly, the statements and actions of the president, haven't been consistent with those norms. And again, I think we have to really focus in on, how do we have credibility in the world when there's another country that engages in inappropriate activity? What happens when one other country invades another? How will we have credibility? How will we build coalitions? It's going to be very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
It will be decades before this mess can be fixed. Unfortunately, we've lost our credibility and moral standing in the world.
Attorney Banks, can you tell the 25th Amendment? There's been a lot of chatter about that. Do you think it's going to have any legs? And what is the 25th Amendment?
I don't think so because of the comments that Marlon and I made earlier. The 25th Amendment states that
Must have been on silence.
Well, I remember Section 1 is the secession plan because
right,
it came up in the Biden administration. Basically, if he dies, become incompetent, or resign, the vice president become the president.
absolutely. In case of the Section 1, in case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. And whenever the president transmits to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the duties of his office, the vice president will become the acting president. But Section 4, which will not be effectuated, I don't think, whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tem and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, then the vice president will immediately assume the duties of the office as acting president. And that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of talk about it
Yeah,
in Congress.
I don't think it's going to happen either. I think one of the tragedies of this administration is that all the moderate voices have left or been fired. So the only people that the president is listening to are the most extreme voices. So to have those individuals, rise up and say, "Hey, there's a 25th Amendment problem," I think you're right, Vanita, is probably nil. But nevertheless, I think we need to make a historical record in terms of what is being done by this administration, what is being said, because Americans, we have short memories. I mean, if a Democrat, gets into office or someone more progressive, we need to remind people that, hey, these are the standards in terms of what you allowed, and making sure that we don't bounce back to these low lights, these low standards that we've seen in the past year or so.
Now, moving forward, there's so many topics, and we won't be able to discuss in great detail all of them. But the one thing that bothered me is the attack on the birthright citizenship. I mean, the case before the Supreme Court, I don't understand why the Supreme Court is taking up, seems like about 25% of the cases dealing with Trump. So why would the Supreme Court take up a topic such as birthright citizenship? And how in the heck, so even if what the Trump administration was playing was true, and you decided that it was improper to have birthright citizenship, how do you enforce a rule like that? It's the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen. You know, I don't understand it. And the case was argued before the Supreme Court. I listened to part of it, and they were saying that the citizenship clause was added because to make the slave citizen. But they ignored the fact that Native American Indians were here before any of the settlers came. And so how did those folks become citizens? You know, and so you go forward in time, you realize that this argument is so far off base. Who exactly are they trying to eliminate as citizens? Because it's not just people that from Mexico and places like that. We have people, a lot of people from Russia. You know, you go to Sunny Isle, Florida, you have all these multimillionaires and billionaires from Russia. They come there, they have kids, and they become American citizens. So it's a very complex subject, but I just thought it was ill-conceived to even argue this at this moment in time. It was such a divisive issue, too.
Right, and I think, Nathaniel, you have to look at what many commentators have talked about, and there's a friend of the court brief as well. You know, if the administration gets their way, then what happens to these children that are born here through no fault of their own? Do they become stateless? Do they not be able to get medical care? Do they not, they're not able to attend universities and colleges? So it really hasn't been thought out in terms of if they get what they want, what would happen next. But the other comment I'll make is a comment made by my pastor. He said that a lot of these initiatives are because of the right-wing fear of the change in demographics of our country, and that we'll be a majority-minority country fairly soon. And so a lot of these efforts in terms of, deportations and birthright citizenship are in fear of that eventuality.
That's absolutely right, Marlon. The 2015 was the first year that more minority babies were born in this country than majority babies. So a lot of these actions are being stoked by fear. The 14th Amendment is very clear in Section 1, which states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And the Supreme Court, opted to take this case. I was happy. I heard some of the arguments that all of the judges, including the conservative judges and Chief Judge Roberts, expressed skepticism regarding the government's arguments that they were making under the 14th Amendment. The bottom line is that if you're born in the United States, you are a U.S. citizen. And at one point, in response to the government's argument, Roberts stated, okay, it's a new world. I'm hearing your argument, but it's the same Constitution. And of course, this case rose to the Supreme Court as a result of the administration's executive order, which defines subject to jurisdiction to exclude children of undocumented parents. And that violates the 14th Amendment citizenship clause. There's also an 1800 case, a case that was decided in the 1800s. I've had it at my ready in past calls, but not on this show. which confirmed that the 14th Amendment applied to all persons that were born in the United States. And I believe that case involved a Chinese resident.
Mm.
We have a caller.
Yes, caller, you have a question or comment for us there. Go ahead.
This is Pierre.
Good morning, sir. How you doing, Pierre?
Oh, good morning, attorneys. Welcome back, Milton.
Thank you,
Great
Pierre.
to see you back. Yeah, with respect to the war in Israel, over there in the Middle East, and what Trump has done, in my opinion, I think he's just laid the foundation for a ground war at some point in the future, and the next president will have to fight it, because now we've got a situation where the mafia mullahs are going to be collecting, I don't know what you call it, extortion money to send ships through the Straits of Hormuz, where before they weren't doing that. But now we've given them a new revenue source, and they're going to use that monies to come at us, but most likely probably the state of Israel. So and if Netanyahu has that much pull with Trump, I don't know, but the man's fighting a war on several fronts in Israel, and you got Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel. He's doing everything he can to stave off those people. So, and y'all know I'm a supporter of Netanyahu, and so, there it is. At some point, we're going to enter into a ground war in that country, and it's all thanks to Trump. And it's not going to be a good situation. But one thing I wanted to put in your ear, Nate, is recently the Kentucky Supreme Court outlawed charter schools and or outlawed funding for charter schools. And I wanted to know, since I think our state constitutions are similar with respect to charter schools and education, and this term common schools, I wanted to put that bug in your ear to see if there were similarities, and if we could possibly do something like that in Indiana, and then have a case ready to go to the Supreme Court, because then you'll have two states with different interpretations, or maybe the same interpretations of funding for charter schools. I just wanted to see what you thought about that. And one more thing, if you think of it, Milton, how's the employment situation for Black people out there in LA? And I want to thank y'all for taking my call.
How important is what for Black people in LA?
The employment situation out there for Blacks in LA.
Okay. The employment situation for Blacks in LA, to my recollection, is as critical as it is for people across the nation. I know people are losing their employment, especially those with certain parts of the federal government. And I don't know how far it goes towards the state government, but I think we're running into I don't know if you would call it a recession or depression, or what economic title would you give it, but there is a feeling of tension or concern about jobs. I mean, they're going on strike in the school system here in a week or two. Teachers, substitute teachers that I know are worried about what are they going to do to take care of their family. I know a couple of them because my partner is a teacher. People are concerned about what's happening with their economic base right now.
How much is gas out there now? About
Yeah.
$10 a
Yeah.
gallon?
Excuse me, $6 a gallon and going up in Northern California. There's this one place up there, that Monterey area, where it's $9 a gallon. And the guy I was reading in the paper the other day justifies why it's $9, because of the cost in getting gas in there and the expenses they have to get it to the consumer. So this war was not, well, I shouldn't say this war was not well thought out. I guess for Trump and his cronies, it was well thought out because it's making money for them across the board. But for concern for this country, I understand there's a draft coming into existence by the end of the year. And when people are drafted, that's what drove me to go to college. It has a negative and a positive influence, because I saw all the body bags coming in from Vietnam every day back in Virginia in 1963 when I graduated from high school. And that summer I said, I can't go to that war. I got to do something. So I got in contact with my football coach in high school, and he got me into his college. But it was initially because I did not want to go to war in Vietnam, was why. So here we're going to have boots on the ground, I understand, like Pierre just said. And this thing in the Strait of is not going away. And we got a crazy man in control. And that's what I have to say.
Well, here's a problem that most people don't realize. In the military, when I was in the military, in our company, there was not a single wealthy person in the military. And that was I was in the military the last year in America they held the draft. They ended the draft in 1973. Now, the reason that's important is from a historical standpoint, the president in 1972 was Richard Nixon. And so we were involved in the Vietnam War. We learned a lot about ground invasion from the Vietnam War. We had mass killing of American soldiers, right? And that's the problem when you get into a ground warfare when you send troops.
It's
We
a
had
6,000.
we had a successful outcome when we had the colonel on our show a couple times, and he led the tank brigade into Iraq back in, I think, under the Bush administration. It was a very successful operation. They ended the war essentially in about 24 hours by choking off and killing the enemies, and they had this massive tank presence, right? But the ground war is a lot different. You could hide in a tree, you could dig a hole, you could be in a bunch of bushes, and so you could set booby trap. It's all type of perils. And so when you get in that situation, you could actually put mines and things on roadways and bridges and stuff, and you could kill people and unexpectedly. And so the problem is that if we get into a ground war, you will see mass casualty. Even if you have a superior army, you're going to lose a lot of soldiers.
Right.
And the second part of that most people don't realize is not the death of a soldier that's the big impediment. It's the one that are injured. So see, when you have a war and someone is injured, look at the number of people it takes to take care of that person. You have nurses, you have doctors, you have surgeons, you have all these different professional people. And so that was one of the biggest dangers of war, not just death, but injuries, because people are permanently injured and deformed for the rest of their life, and they become dependent on government assistance. So just keep that in mind, and that's why the ground warfare is just a terrible idea.
We have a caller.
Yep.
Okay, you have a question for us, caller.
Hi, good morning, everyone, attorneys. This is Renee from New York City. Attorney Lee, I didn't even think about all that with the nursing care and all of that, the extra outside care that's going to happen for these soldiers that are coming back. I have a question about the idea of that these soldiers that are now coming back are speaking out and saying that what Hexa and the rest of the military are saying in front of the cameras is not exactly true. of what went down. So have you heard any more about that? I've been hearing that soldiers are telling their families that they're contradicting all that, well, I call it propaganda presser that the White House is doing. So that's one question. The other thing I have to say about this Iran war, from what I'm reading and talking to people and understanding, is that this war did not have to happen. I mean, there's so many professionals and experts and just regular soldiers who are just saying this from everywhere, that this was not an imminent danger. So if Bibi is fighting wars on all fronts, it's his fault. He started it. He talked Trump into this war with Iran. So I'm going to put it on mute and let me hear what you think about that, please.
Renee, before you put it on mute, tell us about, before we answer that, tell us about what's going on with your Mayor Mandani there in New York, because he's in office 100 days now. I was just interested to see the progress that's been made to deal with the homeless crisis and things like that in your city.
Oh, okay. He's doing great. People that didn't like him before like him now. He's gotten so much done in 100 days. I think that's why the Democratic leadership doesn't like him, because he actually gets things done. He just doesn't talk about it. So I'm really impressed with him. I still like him. He gets a lot of hate because, you know, he's Muslim and because he's succeeding, and people didn't want to see him succeed. So, but he's absolutely doing phenomenal work. He's going to get criticized about anything he does. It's going to be he's not doing enough. But to get that child care provision passed, not only in New York City, but the governor, Hochul, to agree with it in less than 30 days is amazing. And he is filling potholes, and people are making jokes about it. He likes laughing at himself, too. So he doesn't mind the crazy memes. I really like this mayor. I'm so glad I live in New York City. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Vanita, I don't remember the question she asked. Milton.
I'm sorry. I was asking, what do you guys think about the conflicting stories that are coming out from the soldiers who have come back home, the injured ones, and the families of the dead soldiers, that are conflicting with what the White House is putting out there in front of the press? And then I said, Bibi, he shouldn't. The reason why he's fighting wars on all fronts, because he started this. They didn't have to go into Iran. If they didn't go into Iran, Libya wouldn't have attacked them. So I think that all of this is part of Bibi's action with the help of the one president he could get to go along with this mess. And that's it. Thank you.
Right.
Oh, thank you. One quick comment, Marlon. Here's the deal. You murder the father of the current ruler. I suspect that we're going to be on the hit list for the next generation. So I don't think that people realize that these people are not just getting mad, they plan to get even at some point in time. And what does that mean? A mass killing somewhere in America? Who knows? But I think that that's one of the things that we have to be on high alert for at least a generation. But go ahead, Marlon.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Nathaniel. We don't know where this is gonna, manifest itself. And you're right when you look at the fact that the CIA overthrew Mossadegh, who is a leader of Iran in the 50s, and that led to the Shah being installed as a puppet, and then the U.S. embassy was overthrown in '79, and hostages were taken. So you're right, Nathaniel. We don't know where this is going to lead, especially since we had a number of schoolgirls that were killed in this battle. But in terms of Renee's question, there have been issues in terms of military families, especially those that are in bases in the Middle East, as it relates to whether or not they were adequately protected. And it kind of goes to the whole tenor of our whole conversation, that we weren't really prepared for what was happening. We have soldiers in Kuwait and other countries, and their families and the soldiers are saying that, hey, there was no protection. It wasn't about a missile just getting through. There was no warning. It was not fortified. And they basically called out the Defense Secretary Hextech, saying that what he was saying, that it was isolated, was not accurate. So that certainly is problematic. And there are a lot of families, soldiers that are out there that just aren't being protected. So we need to really keep them in our prayers and hold the administration accountable to make sure they're being accurate.
Well, I say if you look at history, when I started college in 1963, I think my second year, I started reading for once in my life, and gladly. And I used to read a lot on the Middle East and fiction and nonfiction. But what I came away with was those, because I thought I was self-defense oriented and studied martial arts and stuff. That's one individual that I don't want to fight, because the fight is never over. If I beat him, he ain't going to go home and say, well, I got my butt whipped. He's going to go home and plan vengeance upon me. That was my influence of feelings about fighting dudes who say it's a reward to die in combat and go to heaven and have 10 virgins as my welcoming committee. So I don't mind dying. Well, I didn't think about fighting with that type of attitude. Here you've taken the father away of the leader, and you can expect some vengeance, either through suicide bombing or through some fanatical effort. I would suspect, based on history, that they're not just going to turn their back and say, okay, we can settle this in a boardroom. I don't think.
And based on all the reasons that we're articulating here today, America is weaker and Americans are less safe because of this war of choice. There obviously was no imminent threat
Right.
that was demonstrated for all the rationales that we have discussed. There hasn't been regime change in 47 years. And so why would we think that one objective should be regime change in this case? And again, what we're seeing is that we have one Ayatollah that has been replaced with or succeeded by a younger Ayatollah. And so no ideology has changed. It's unfortunate and very scary. This is a dangerous world that we live in.
What did you say, Ms. Banks? Very scary?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a caller. Could you?
Go ahead, caller. You're on mute. Okay, while the caller, I'm muting.
But I hope we get to a bright spot before we go today.
Hello.
How about that Armistice landing?
Yeah, go ahead. Talk
But
about
I
that.
hear the caller.
Go ahead, caller. Quickly.
This is Guy calling. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Guy. What's up?
Just wanted to point out that to look at the contrast, we do have a serious situation in the Middle East, no doubt, but we have a great success in terms of Artemis 2, which has had a successful journey around the moon and successful messages, I think, for the people of the earth. They look at a different perspective than we do. So hopefully we'll look at that message and take it to heart. Also, would like to point out that tomorrow, Sunday, is an election for Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, O-R-B-A-N, and he's a strong man of Hungary, which a lot of so-called hard right conservatives look to with pride. J.D. Vance, our vice president, has journeyed to Hungary to help Orban, who has been in office for 16 years and reportedly is quite a scoundrel, but looked up to by some of the people that are scoundrels here in the United States.
Well, thanks a million. He raised something important. I just personally have an in-house expert, Dr. Smokey Smith Lee, and kept me abreast of this Artemis. And I learned a lot about this space travel just by talking to her about it. It's just amazing. So I got interested in that, I've watched with great interest this space travel around the moon, the dark side of the moon. So, it was, I watched it every night. And I was very gratified that it was a safe travel and a successful mission. I was very thankful that it ended very well, you know. And so
Yeah,
it was very, yeah, go
it
ahead.
you know, it was wonderful, and you know, and a lot of things that we're talking about are that there's just norms that aren't being adhered to, and the damage that's been done nationally, internationally. But you know, there's just so many good things about this story. You have Pilot Glover, you know, a great brother, great family man, my fraternity brother, a Sigma. And it was just a great story. Yeah, it was just a great story. They got along together, and all this science that was involved in that. I mean, these folks are traveling 24,000 miles per hour. They were in a fireball of 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and we were able to have the technology of getting them back safely. So it was, you know, I was on pins and needles, just knowing that there was no room for error. So it's just everything that's wonderful about our country. We have a woman, we have an African American, we have somebody from another country, and you know, it's something that we all should be able to celebrate.
That successful landing made me proud to be in America, despite all of the challenges that we are facing. That team traveled further than any human has traveled from Earth in history. 252,752 miles. They set a new record. We saw, and a key to the success of the mission was the diversity of all the teams that came together. I am so excited that this mission will help to fuel young people's interest in STEM careers. And it was just absolutely wonderful.
I agree with what both of you are saying, but Trump's threat to annihilate a civilization and destroy bridges and waterways and life support systems for a humanity is going to make us unproud of America if he goes through with any part of that threat.
A closing comment. We got 2 minutes left.
That's mine.
Go ahead. Benita, closing comments.
That was mine regarding Artemis. I want to close on a positive note.
Marlon?
Yeah, I just think it's just wonderful, this trip. And I just hope it really inspires a whole new generation, especially folks that look like us, that pursue careers in STEM, in engineering, in mathematics. You know, it's so exciting. And I'm hopeful that, you know, this will ignite a new generation of people that want to be like Pilot Glover and everyone else that was a part of the successful mission.
Those photos from the moon were awesome as well.
Yeah. Milton, any closing comment?
No others.
Okay. Go ahead, Milton.
Not that I agree with that, but it scares me with what's going on right now in this country. It does.
Yeah. In closing, people in Indianapolis, early voting has started. We have some important local election. My good friend, Senator Pastor Green, is running in Senate District 29. I'm a strong supporter. And so make sure that you make plans to do early voting. And remember, this fall election is going to be the most important one in your lifetime, the next two elections. So go out there and make sure that you vote, folks, and let's get your friends and neighbors to this election is coming up next month, but early voting has already started. Thank you, everyone, and we'll be talking to you about the subjects that we missed next week, such as Pam Bunn and things like that. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day.
Hey,
Have a wonderful